Happy Valentine's Day. Yes, we are devoting today's show to a topic that may not be all that romantic, but it is relevant. And it is important if you have a spouse or a life partner. And that's retirement planning for couples. It's that time again, time to tune out the hype and focus on the facts. Facts that matter to you, the income generation. Let's get started. Get ready to separate reality from myth.
Joining me right now is Sound Income Strategies founder and CEO David Scranton.
They've created a new type of inflation. And although markets have always been an emotional place, they seem to be even more of an emotional place these days.
Jeffrey Small, market watcher, is with me.
Stock market dynamic is getting ready to significantly change.
So let's bring in our co-host, Jeff Small, president of Arbor Financial Services, and also the brand ambassador for the Retirement Income Store. Surveys show that there is one issue that causes friction and fighting among couples more than any other, and that's money. It's true for young couples just starting out. It's true for couples with growing children, and it's even true for couples in or nearing retirement. As with everything else in marriage or life partnership, financial planning should be a team effort. And that will help ensure that you'll maximize the many financial benefits and the many financial opportunities that couples enjoy, but at the same time trying to avoid the potential mistakes. And we'll talk about all of that and more right here on today's show. So we're going to discuss one of the biggest potential retirement planning mistakes for couples to avoid. Also, other common pitfalls to watch out for, and some important financial guidelines for couples during that all-important transitional period leading up to retirement. And joining me, of course, will be my good friend and co-host, Jeff Small, along with Samuel and Kirstie O'Banner, a couple that we actually had on the show a few years ago to talk about how they became debt-free in the early years of their marriage. We're excited to catch up with them today. And later in the show, we'll talk to Arizona-based financial advisor, Joann Regan, and she'll share some of her best estate planning tips for couples. We'll also have some news we want to share with you all, our loyal audience. We're making some big changes to the show. We're moving the income generation to a new home on a new network. We're also changing up the format to a new improved look. We're sad to be leaving our Newsmax family after so many years, but we don't want you to miss out on any of our exclusive content while we figure out the future. So follow us on our YouTube channel, The Income Generation, where we will continue to post the show, as well as interviews with all your favorite guests. You'll also be the first to know where and when our new and improved show will air after we make that decision. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Income Generation. Okay, back to the show. Let's talk briefly about some common mistakes that couples make when it comes to financial planning and how to avoid these mistakes. Once two people decide to become a couple, that partnership isn't just romantic or domestic, it's also financial. And neglecting that reality when it comes to managing your money and saving for retirement is an all too common mistake among couples. One spouse might invest his or her retirement money conservatively, while the other takes a more aggressive and riskier approach. One might maximize his or her 401k contributions, while the other contributes only perhaps a tiny amount or nothing at all. If these differences have been discussed and agreed upon, that's fine. But sometimes it happens as a result of couples having a my money, your money mindset rather than our money. And that mindset can potentially lead to problems in the marriage. Of course, there are situations, such as a second or third marriage, where considering assets separately makes sense. But usually, a joint approach is preferable and creates more options for you to help maximize your money. Another common mistake couples make is not considering joint life expectancy, not considering age, not considering health differences. Because discussions of this type can be difficult, but they're important to have, especially if one or both of you are already in your late 50s or early 60s or older. Statistically, there's a good chance that one of you will live longer than you expect, and your joint retirement plan needs to prepare for that. If there's a large age gap between the two of you, that needs to be factored into your distribution plan, your income plan. Since one of you may have to begin required minimum distributions from your retirement accounts years before the other. Also, health differences matter greatly, since they may affect your need for long-term care or your choice of health plans and the types of activities that you might engage in and have as part of your goals during retirement. Another common mistake is ignoring differences in your financial knowledge and your financial experience. It's very common for one spouse to be the primary decision maker about money matters. Why? Because he or she is more comfortable in that role. However, it doesn't mean that the other spouse should just completely ignore those decisions. Remember, it should be a team effort, and having the right financial advisor can help ensure that both of you are financially literate and both of you are able to understand your options. And that's important. Why? Because if the decision maker dies unexpectedly, the surviving spouse will need to step up. Plus, retirees are often targets of scammers, and both partners should know how to protect themselves. And finally, don't make the common mistake of starting Social Security without considering survivor and spousal benefits. Because the Social Security survivor benefit is a built-in form of life insurance for married couples. With just a little planning, you can usually get a higher benefit amount from the person who made the most income. And that higher benefit will continue for the life of the spouse that lives the longest. And right now it's time to welcome my good friend and co-host, Jeff Small, president of Arbor Financial Services, a retirement income store in Melbourne, Florida. Jeff's also the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Turning Financial Planning Right Side Up. Jeff, I have to admit, and this may sound funny on Valentine's Day, but I kind of miss you. We went out fishing 2 weekends in a row and we missed last weekend. How did that happen?
That's all right, Dave. I'm going to see you this weekend down in the Keys so we can make up for lost time there.
That's right. There you go. I love it. All right. We also want to take an opportunity to bring in our guests, an old friend of the income generation from 3 or 4 years ago, Samuel and Kirstie O'Banner. We met the O'Banners a few years ago when they came through one of our income specialists, Michael Eastham, who's based in Orlando, Florida. They appeared on Fox Business with Michael, and they talked about their plans to marry and to get out of debt. When we first had them on our show in 2018, they had achieved both of their goals and even founded Fresh Start Education. And we're excited to catch up with them on today's show. So tell me, first of all, I hope you're both still debt-free, right?
Yes, very much so. And
all right.
We're glad to be here, David. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks for having us.
Well, of course, and just tell me briefly, how have you been coping over the last 11 months or so with the pandemic and all this craziness that we're all subjected to?
Man, it's been an eventful last year or so in so many ways, obviously with everything going on globally and even personally for us. We had our first child back in September.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
We've been adjusting to parenthood in the middle of a pandemic. And, thankfully our businesses are still thriving and we've been able to continue working towards our financial goals. So
that's awesome. With the pandemic and more time together, you probably feel like you've had 10 years of marriage in the last 3 years. Jeff?
So, listen, guys, lots of couples start out today. They have no idea how to accumulate, how to get organized. Give us the best tips for our viewers and our listeners, especially a lot of the viewers that we have are older, younger, in the middle age range. For their kids, they want advice to be able to share with them. What's the 1 or 2 tips you can give them for folks to get started on how to start accumulating wealth?
Yeah, we think that one of the primary things you have to do is first, if you're married, budget together, unity is important. And you get 2 people on the same page, you can make huge progress. If you're single, still have a plan. So the first thing is having a plan. You got to keep your end goal in mind.
Right. And definitely eliminating debt. When we talk about building wealth, Jeff, eliminating debt, because it's just going to rob you of your ability to accumulate wealth if everything you're making is, going out the window. So eliminating debt as quickly as possible, looking into some, smart investment opportunities and really starting there, we think, for sure.
So tell me, how do you balance, your goals together and your goals separately? Clearly all your goals aren't the same, right? So how do you balance the together stuff and the separate stuff?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think ultimately we come together and we determine where do we want to go as a family.
Right.
You know, even the timing being on the show, you asked us, are we still debt free? When we were on the show previously, we were debt free, everything but the house. And in 2 weeks, we're happy to say that we will have our primary residence paid off. We'll be completely debt free.
Right.
Woohoo! Congratulations. That's awesome.
So
Thank you.
we had the end goal in mind, and that's important. And you start from there. And every goal is not going to be, you know, as big as the end goal, but you just kind of start with the end goal and then you work your way and work through any other goals you may have.
Sure. And for all of you tuning in, what I really want to know, and we're going to ask right after the commercial break, is Kirstie going to let Samuel buy that sports car that all guys want? So stay with us. We'll be back here in just a moment on the Income Generation. Welcome back to the Income Generation. I'm David Scranton, and for Valentine's Day, I'm stuck here with Jeff Small. But luckily, Samuel and Kirstie O'Banner are together celebrating Valentine's Day. I think it's your third or fourth as a married couple, now with a new baby. So again, congratulations. So, you know, I always talk against this my money, your money mindset, and I joked about the sports car right before the break. But it sounds like you're really not advocates of the my money, your money mindset. You're advocates of the our money mindset. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the way we look at it, you know, we're going to come together and join our lives together. Why keep the finances separate? And what we found in our experience, it's actually been almost 7 years for us married. And in that time frame, I mean, we've been able to accomplish so many different things by working together. You know, we had that your money, my money mindset, you know, we might be going in two different directions, but putting it all together and seeing it as, you know, ours, you know, we've really been able to make a lot of traction. So we're huge advocates for that our mentality.
Well, I'm happy I didn't hear you say, you know, what's mine is mine, what's yours is mine. Because I've heard occasionally a lady or two actually voice those words. So I'm glad you didn't say that, Kirstie. Jeff?
So how do you guys keep score? You've paid off your mortgage, which is epic. The number one concern for retirees when they retire is to have a home that's debt-free because that's peace of mind. And we don't want to minimize our expenses and maximize our income. And you guys are doing a great job of that. But how do we keep score in the meantime? How do you guys track to meet your goals on a regular basis based on how you're organized? How do you keep score?
I think it just all boils down to working together, and periodically we have meetings frequently.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks to discuss our financial goals.
Budget meetings.
You know, we have the long-term goals, and then we back into it with more short-term goals.
Mm-hmm.
And we just keep each other accountable. And so there's constant conversations about things, and you know, we try not to look at what anybody else is doing, and we stay focused in our lane and what our goals together as a family.
Right.
So if you don't put time and effort into it, you're not going to get the result. It requires management. It requires punctual management and punctual reviews. That's what I hear you saying.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We have to stay on top of it every 2 weeks. Again, we're looking at the budget. We're looking at what's going out, what's coming in, projecting, you know, for the next 2 weeks out, and even sometimes a little further than that. But definitely keeping an eye on it and stay working in it very often.
So Kirstie, what I want to know though is what happens when Samuel is bad and he's done something like spent a little too much money? What do you do to him?
Well, believe it or not, you should probably be asking him that about me. It's funny, Dave mentioned the sports car question. I actually want the sports car. You know, Samuel's a simple guy. I don't know if I'll be able to get him to get rid of his Toyota Camry anytime soon. But
you'll let him drive it every once in a while, though, right, Kirstie?
Right, absolutely. Here and there. But to answer your question, Jeff, you know, we have, again, we're big advocates about budgeting together, but we do still have discretionary spending that we allocate in the budget to be able to do the things that we both, you know, want to do or choose to do. And so, you know, we kind of do our own thing in some ways, but we do agree on those amounts. And from there, it's, kind of free reign.
So let's pivot to the topic we always talk about on this show, because a lot of our viewers are older than yourselves. And at your age, most people don't think about their retirement goals and what retirement looks like. But because you're such good planners, I mean, have you done that? Have you sat down to spell out what retirement's going to look like for the two of you?
Yeah, actually, it's a part of those long-term goal conversations. And so with us paying off our primary residence and being completely mortgage-free, it really frees up finances for us to look into investment properties and can continue to maintain the lifestyle that we desire and also provide for our child.
Yeah. Some of the things that we have planned for retirement, I don't know when we might want to, not work, but if, whenever we find ourselves in that situation, we do want to, we are working towards some other investments and different things so that we can sustain our lifestyle and continue to give generously and provide for our daughter and maybe future children. We'll see.
Well, I love it. And it's so great to have you two back on the show. As I said 3 years ago, I'll say it again. Samuel and Kirstie O'Banner, my favorite Irish couple in the whole world. Thanks so much for being back here with us. And again, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
I'm David Scranton, founder of the Retirement Income Store. If you're in or near retirement, are you certain you have the right retirement plan in place? Do you want to help ensure your nest egg will last you all throughout retirement? Take our retirement review quiz and find out in 5 minutes or less if you're doing everything you can to achieve a more successful retirement.
Don't waste any more time. Visit myfreeretirementreview.com to find out if you have the right retirement strategy in place.
Let's take a minute and talk about one of the biggest potential mistakes that a couple can make when it comes to retirement. They both decide to leave the workforce at exactly the same time. Everyone's situation is different, of course, and there may be times where retiring together is a viable option. However, unless both partners are the same age and have similar health, it usually makes more sense for one person to retire earlier. And that's true for many reasons, including financial reasons. First, when one spouse works longer and delays taking Social Security until after full retirement age, that person's benefit amount will be much higher. Second, the continued income from the working partner gives the couple a few more years to save for retirement and to create the right strategies for post-retirement income. And third, a spouse or partner who works 3 to 5 years longer than the other will reduce the time during which both partners will need to be generating income from their assets. And that can be especially helpful for couples in good health or with a family history of longevity. Longevity means that you may need reliable retirement income for up to 30 years or more. Now, speaking of health, staggering your retirements also means that one spouse will have the option of remaining on his or her employer's health care plan, which might just be a cheaper option than Medicare and Medicare supplements and so on. Because as you might know, Medicare eligibility starts at age 65. So if you were to retire at 65 and your partner retires at the same time but is only 62, he or she must find alternative coverage for the next 3 years. And finally, there's also, in many cases, strong emotional reasons for retiring separately. You see, retirement can be a complex and even a difficult transition for some people. Others adapt more easily. When working couples retire together, often they struggle with different reactions and different coping skills. Couples who retire at the same time can find themselves suddenly estranged once they no longer have the separation of work that they'd become accustomed to. They may also have a hard time establishing new relationship boundaries. In fact, studies show that it's usually easier from an emotional standpoint when only one partner goes through this transition process at a time. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk more about some of the critical issues that retirees need to be aware of, that couples need to be aware of before they actually pull the trigger and retire. Stay with us. We'll be right back here on The Income Generation. I'm David Scranton. During my career, I found that most baby boomers have done a great job growing their retirement savings, yet many don't know how to convert their savings into steady income. And that is why I built the Retirement Income Store, to help hardworking Americans preserve their assets and establish steady streams of income.
If you're 55 or older, our free retirement income kit is for you. It's chock full of information you need to know to get steady income during your retirement. Call 866-710-1749. Online at theretirementinComeStore.com.
The Income Generation is now available on YouTube. Subscribe to The Income Generation so that you never miss a show. You can watch all your favorite episodes now in one place, as well as catch up with your favorite financial guests. Subscribe now to the Income Generation channel on YouTube.
Meet Bob. 10 years ago, he made the shift from investing for growth in the stock market to investing for income. Today, many of his friends are terrified to open their recent statements, but not Bob. Bob is enjoying his retirement, counting his interest and dividends. By investing for income, Bob was able to reduce his exposure to market risk and establish renewable streams of income for retirement. Sound familiar? If not, start with our free retirement income kit by calling 888-888-4176. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income.
Welcome back to the Income Generation. It's great to have you all here on this wonderful Valentine's Day. You know, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, there are big changes coming up in the next few weeks. We're updating and improving our format. We'll also be airing the Income Generation show on a new network. So, in the meantime, subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Income Generation, so you can still get our exclusive content. And also, you'll be the first to know when and where the new and improved show will air. Now, back to our show topic today, and that's retirement strategies for couples. If you're a regular viewer, you know I often stress that a successful retirement plan starts with identifying your specific retirement goals. And that's especially true when it comes to couples. Even if you and your partner have a lot in common, if you enjoy the same pastimes and the same vacation spots, you may discover you have very different ideas about how and where you want to spend your retirement years. You know, most couples talk about their retirement dreams from time to time as the years pass. However, at some point, it's important to sit down and to agree on specific retirement goals that you want to work toward. The more specific you can be, the better your chances, of course, of achieving those goals, because you can take specific actions. Should you be contributing more to your 401k right now? Would downsizing your home before retirement actually make sense? What about starting a spousal IRA? These are all questions you'll be better able to answer and to act upon with the help of the right advisor. Your advisor can also help you with another important financial planning step for couples, and that's strategizing your Social Security claims. I touched upon this earlier when discussing survivor benefits and spousal benefits. However, there are many other reasons why it's essential for couples to coordinate taking their benefits with the help of the right advisor, preferably one who specializes in retirement income planning. Another crucial step they can help you with is reviewing your beneficiaries. Those are the people named on your 401k, named on your IRA, who will receive that money if you should die unexpectedly. It's important to make sure this information is up to date based on possible changes in your family dynamic over the years, such as marriages, divorces, births, deaths, etc. Changing your primary beneficiary or your secondary beneficiary, if needed, can be done through your HR rep if you have a 401k, or through your broker or advisor if you have an IRA. And finally, if you're a couple, it's extremely important not to neglect estate planning as part of your retirement planning process. Having an estate plan isn't just about deciding what happens to your assets after you're gone. It's also about effectively managing those assets and protecting them from a legal standpoint while you're still around. And very often, the right advisor can put you in touch with a qualified estate planning attorney who can help. The two professionals can work in sync to make sure your estate plan is well aligned with your overall retirement plan and remains that way year after year. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring in my good friend and co-host, Jeff Small, to discuss more retirement strategies for couples as potential mistakes to avoid. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Did you know that the Retirement Income Store publishes its own newsletter? Each month, we share helpful information about the financial markets, research reports, and other resources to help you navigate the complexities of planning and saving for retirement. And we want to help make 2021 the year that you achieve and maintain your financial fitness. we're offering our loyal Income Generation viewers and listeners a complimentary 12-month trial subscription to the newsletter. So don't delay. This offer is only available for a limited period of time. Visit areyoufinanciallyfit.com to claim your free 1-year subscription. Now it's time to bring back in my good friend and co-host, Jeff Small. So Jeff, since it's Valentine's Day, do I have to call you sweetie? Is that what we need to do here on the show? Just to be politically correct?
Not if you want me as a co-host going forward, Dave.
That's a great answer. So isn't it great to see a young couple like the O'Banners? I mean, you see people come in your offices, I do sometimes, that are laden with debt and they're not too far from retirement, or they haven't saved a lot for retirement. So when you get a young couple as responsible, as fiscally responsible as the O'Banners, it's kind of refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really refreshing. What's even more refreshing is the fact that they're debt-free. And that's, like I said earlier, the biggest concern for retirees is to have a home that has no mortgage on it when they retire. It's huge they did that.
Yeah. What do you see when couples come into your office that are either newly retired or maybe planning to retire? What do you see where there's sometimes the most conflict between couples, or maybe they haven't gotten on the same page yet?
Well, I wouldn't say there's a lot of conflict. I think there's more questions and confusion when they transition from their working lives into retirement because they lose the income that they were generating from their job. And now they have to figure out how to recreate that. And to be honest with you, they really have no idea other than Social Security. And so what we do is we fill in the blanks for them and show them how to recapture that. And that's very important. That's the biggest thing that's really confusing for folks, Dave, in that age range.
No, I agree. I do find conflict sometimes, though, Jeff. It's funny. I'll find situations where people come in and they don't agree on their retirement goals. And that's always a challenge. And I find that I'm almost like a marriage counselor sometimes in terms of helping just to get them to compromise to have the same goal. I mean, think about it. How many couples do you talk with where one is totally risk averse, for example, and doesn't want to have a penny in the stock market, but the other spouse would be happy with all the money in the stock market?
Well,
so, I mean, how do you get them to create that type of compromise when they come to see you?
Well, I think that they both have to have a working understanding and get on that our money mindset page, because if they're not on that our money mindset page, they're not going to be able to hear each other and understand each other and then visit with somebody like us or you who can help them understand what those issues are so they can make some informed decisions in tandem going forward. And so, but it is difficult. I mean, I had to counsel somebody the other day who wanted to get divorced, not for money, but because her husband watches Fox News 24 hours a day and won't get off the channel. So.
Oh, yes. Well, we don't have that problem here at Newsmax, of course, because, the whole family sits down with a bowl of popcorn and watches Newsmax, right? And we all know that to be true. But so, okay, retirement goals are one thing. Risk tolerance is another. One thing that I talk to people, sometimes they don't agree on the risk tolerance side, is I get them to realize that, not having all your money in the stock market, for example, isn't a permanent decision. If somebody's worried because they think the market just had a nice run and maybe don't want to be as aggressive as the other member, you can always pull back, but it doesn't mean that when there's a buying opportunity down the road, when there's a market correction, that you can't put more in. And some people think they're making permanent decisions, but they're really not. It's not a permanent decision. There's no law that says if you get to take some money out of the stock market, you can never put it back in. I mean, I'd even think under a Biden presidency, and that may sound far-fetched, but even under a Biden presidency, I don't think such a law would ever be created. Do you, Jeff?
Well, no, not really, Dave. But the reality is, it is what it is. The markets are going to grow. They're divested from the political side of the equation. Earnings are what matters. And so, yes, there's nothing wrong with having some money in the market. But you and I both know that for the married couples that come into our offices, the women are always the most conservative, the men are always the most aggressive. So we have to help them achieve that balance. That's the thing. It's all about balance.
Yep. And as my good friend Jeff said one point in an absolute moment of clarity on television, he said, risk is risky. And Jeff, you're absolutely correct. Risk is risky. So, final thoughts for our couples watching this show together with a bowl of popcorn and a box of chocolates on this wonderful Valentine's Day.
So Dave, I think some final thoughts on what couples should do going forward financially and that are retired for our viewers and our listeners. They need to strike a balance. They need to communicate with each other. They need to be on the same page. And it's really important for the women to be equal in this situation as well as the men. And so you guys can be constructive and work on whatever it is you guys want to accomplish, whether you're retired or pre-retirement.
Yep, great thoughts. Or in the case of your relationship, you're struggling to get up to that 50% mark in your household. But that's another story for another day. Oops, I probably shouldn't have said that on television. But stay with us. So we come back, we're going to talk about the importance of couples working together with their estate planning goals from estate planner extraordinaire, Joann Regan. Stay with us. We'll be right back on the Income Generation. Welcome back to the Income Generation. It's great to be here with you today discussing a complex but extremely important topic, and that's retirement strategies for couples. If you're married or have a life partner, you know your relationship can't just run on autopilot. It takes work and it takes commitment to make it succeed. Sometimes it takes a professional to help you work out certain problems or even to help you identify certain issues before they become problems. The point is that relationships require work, and they require attention because things change. People change, situations change, the world changes. An important key to any long-term relationship is having the willingness and the ability to adapt to change and to anticipate it whenever possible. And that's true for the emotional part of your relationship, and is just as true for the financial part. So, as we all know, the world has changed just a little bit in the past year. The global pandemic has put new demands and put new pressures on every aspect of our lives. For some, this may mean certain aspects of your retirement plan, such as your goals, maybe your allocation, maybe your Social Security strategy. Some of those things might have to change. And that's why right now, I believe, is the ideal time for you and your spouse or your partner to review your retirement plan with the help of the right financial advisor, especially if you haven't done so in a while. Now, that could be the advisor you have now, or it might have to be one that's different, one that's more experienced with the knowledge required when it comes to helping couples at this particular stage of life. And that means those in or transitioning to retirement and looking to generate reliable retirement income, or those trying to reduce their investment risk, or possibly even increase their upside potential for organic portfolio growth. The right advisor can help you achieve any of these goals and create an income strategy that's right for you and right for your partner right now. Now it's time to bring back my co-host Jeff Small, as well as our next guest, a good friend of the Income Generation, Joann Regan, president of Financial Security Group, a retirement income store in Glendale, Arizona. Joann's been helping clients with tax, estate, and retirement planning now for over 30 years. Joann, it's great to have you back on the show looking all festive for Valentine's Day.
Well, Dave, thank you. It's great to be here, and happy Valentine's Day to you and Jeff.
Well, thank you, and same to you. So, okay, not everyone needs an estate plan though, right? Isn't it only rich people?
Absolutely not, Dave. Everybody needs to be thinking about estate planning, no matter if they are rich, poor, or anything, because estate planning doesn't just mean what happens to your things when you pass away, but also means what happens when you become incapacitated. And estate planning does encompass all of that. So I do think it's very important for people to be thinking about their estate planning just in case they get sick. You know, who's going to pay their bills, who's going to take care of things, who's going to make healthcare decisions, and also what is going to happen when it's distributed when they pass away.
So Joann, great points. What is the greatest misconception for retirees that are married in their early 60s thinking about getting their will and trust done? What is the one question that they always seem to ask or have a misunderstanding about?
I would say the biggest misconception that I run into with my clients is they come in and they want to do a will. And they think that if they have a will, it doesn't have to go through probate. And they don't understand that a will by its very nature is a directive to the court, telling the court what they want to have happen. So all wills will go through probate. And people don't understand that. They think that just because they've done something that it doesn't have to go through the court.
So what are some of the best ways then for couples, I guess, and everyone really, to avoid probate if that's one of their goals?
Well, there are many ways to avoid probate. Probably the most popular right now is people are doing revocable living trusts. And there is also a misconception about that. People think you have to have a lot of money to do a trust, and that's not true. It's just a vehicle to be able for people to pass their assets without going through the court. I mean, you can also do beneficiary designations, and there's other things people try to do, like put their assets in joint names with other folks and things like that. Those work, but a good estate plan is going to cover all possible contingencies, and I think that people need to look at that. That's really the important thing to look at.
Sure. And a lot of people don't realize, don't even need a living trust necessarily. If you've got an investment account or brokerage account, typically you can just do a transfer on death designation. Essentially name a beneficiary to that account just like you do an IRA, a 401k, life insurance, just about anything, right?
That's absolutely correct. Like I said, you can name beneficiaries on just about anything, but there are some exceptions. Estate planning can get very complicated if there's underage beneficiaries, beneficiaries with social problems, people that have children that have special needs. And so all of that has to be taken into account when you're doing estate planning.
And thus, that's where the trust comes in. So stay with us. We'll be back in a moment where we're going to ask Joann some really difficult questions about some of the biggest mistakes that she sees people making, mistakes you're going to want to avoid in your estate plan. Stay with us. We'll be back with more on the income generation. Welcome back to the Income Generation. I'm David Scranton, and I'm here today with Jeff Small and Joann Regan, president of Financial Security Group, a retirement income store located in Glendale, Arizona. So Joann, as promised before the break, please tell our Income Generation viewers and listeners, what are one or two of the biggest estate planning mistakes that you see couples making? Is mistakes that pretty much everybody watching or listening should seek to avoid?
Well, the biggest mistake that I see is people not planning at all. It always amazes me that I have folks come into my office and they're in their 70s and they haven't done any estate planning whatsoever. So I always congratulate them for making an important decision. The second thing that I see is people doing estate planning and not taking into consideration what happens if their first successor trustee or their personal representative can't act on their behalf. They don't appoint a backup. Or if their beneficiaries become ill and can't act. So those kind of things are important. You have to go one step further in estate planning, not just, one person, but go further and make more contingencies so that everything will go according to your plan.
So Joann, besides avoiding probate, which we know is, a charge for assets that we have, what other documents should complete a good estate plan? What other things do you need besides a living trust that helps you avoid probate?
I think the most important document that every person should have is a financial power of attorney form in place. Because if you become incapacitated or you cannot make your own decisions, you want to allow someone to be able to pay your bills, take care of your assets, and make sure that everything goes according to your wishes. And if you don't have that in place, someone is going to end up having to petition the court in order to be able to take care of your things. And it's extremely costly and very time consuming. So planning is important in this instance. Having those documents in place are going to really save your family a lot in the long run.
Agreed. Healthcare surrogates are also very good too, or powers of attorney for healthcare. They complement the financial side of the equation. But when we look at what our clients have for assets, they have tangible assets, which really is real estate. They have intangible, which really is going to be their investment accounts. It could be their IRAs, their savings, their bank accounts. Do those things all need to be tied up into a trust to avoid probate, or are there other ways to avoid probate with some of those intangible assets?
Certainly. With intangible assets, you can always name a beneficiary. Although there are pitfalls in naming beneficiaries as well, because if something happens to a beneficiary, again, you don't have a backup, then it's going to end up in the court. So being thorough in your estate planning is going to be what's going to make it be successful. You really have to think through everything, and working with someone who is going to ask you the right questions and make sure that you think your plan all the way through is going to be what's going to make it work.
So,
and a lot of times too, I'll see people saying, hey, we can fix this with the will. And they don't realize that the beneficiary designations actually supersede what's in the will. So if I have you, Joann, as my beneficiary, and the will says everything goes to Jeff, it really doesn't matter. Jeff may think he's getting it, but at the end of the day, you're getting it because the beneficiary designation supersedes everything else, right?
Absolutely. And that is kind of one of those really sad stories that I have to tell, is that, I have a couple that came in. The gentleman had previously divorced, had never changed his life insurance beneficiary from his ex-wife to his current wife. And when he passed, the current wife thought she was going to be getting his life insurance, and come to find out it didn't go to her at all, and there was nothing that could be done. And that happens a lot. Those type of mistakes do happen when people don't review their estate plans. And that's what I want to emphasize also, is just because you do an estate plan doesn't mean you just put it in the top of the closet and never look at it again. It does need to be reviewed periodically, and to make sure that everything is correct, because things do change, and you should make sure that you take those changes into effect when they happen, so that nobody gets in trouble.
So that's a great point, because a lot of attorneys, they write the documents and that's it, and they never follow up with the individual. In your practice, how often do you tell your clients that they should review all these legal documents?
Well, because we do a lot of other things besides just estate planning, we do tax work and we also do financial work. Sure. I always tell my client, anytime you walk in my door, bring your trust documents or your will documents with you, and let's go over them. But if they don't come in for that, I do try to encourage them at least every other year to touch base with me, so we can make sure that everything is still up to date.
Every 2 years. Wow, that's pretty often. I know most people don't do that. So Joann, once again, great having you here. Thanks so much for being here with us. And you stay with us too. We're coming back. We got more about estate planning. We're going to wrap it up and put a bow on it for Valentine's Day in a moment on the Income Generation. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Income Generation. I'm David Scranton. And yes, everyone loves a good love story, especially on Valentine's Day. However, in real life, we all know that happily ever after isn't something that just magically happens, because it takes real work. It takes real effort to make a relationship succeed in every way, including financial. Simply put, couples need to think and plan for retirement differently than single people do. By making retirement decisions together with a joint outcome in mind, your money can last longer, and both of you can look forward to enjoying retirement and to achieving your goals. So let's recap some of the specific steps that we've talked about today. Number one, avoid clinging to a my money, your money mindset, and focus instead on maximizing your assets collectively. Also, recognize and address differences in your financial knowledge and experience. Communicate openly about important issues like joint life expectancy, age, health differences. Also, understand that for most couples, there are many benefits, both financial and emotional, to staggering retirement by just a few years, rather than retiring at the same time and increasing stress and pressure. Discuss and set retirement goals. Understand the importance of coordinating your Social Security benefits and of having an estate plan. And finally, be aware that right now is an ideal time to revisit, review, and possibly revise your retirement plan. all preferably with the help of a financial advisor who specializes in retirement income. I'd like to take a moment and thank my guests, Samuel and Kirstie O'Banner and Joann Regan, as well as my good friend and co-host Jeff Small, all for joining me here today on The Income Generation. I also like to thank you, our new and returning viewers. So please, remember, if you're close to or you're in retirement and you're concerned about your money, it's essential you stay informed and up to date. And as you know, right here is where you can do it on The Income Generation. I'm David Scranton, and we'll see you next week. The Income Generation is now available on YouTube. Subscribe to The Income Generation so that you never miss a show. You can watch all your favorite episodes now in one place, as well as catch up with your favorite financial guests. Subscribe now to the Income Generation channel on YouTube.